I'm 66 years old. I was a corporate defense attorney for 35 years, won 47 major cases, lost count of the smaller ones. My success rate in court, 94%. My success rate as a father, 0. My son checked into rehab for the 3rd time last week. He's 32 years old.
And every time I visit him, he looks at me like I'm a stranger. Because I am. In the next 12 minutes, I'm going to tell you about the difference between winning and actually having something worth keeping. And if you're like I was, you won't want to hear it. But you need to, because the shadow you're running from, it's already catching up.
You think you're building something, a career, a reputation, a legacy. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you gave your best self to your family? Not the exhausted version that shows up at 9 p.m. Not the distracted version scrolling through emails at dinner. Your best self. The version you give to clients, to bosses, to colleagues you barely like. I spent 35 years in corporate law. Defended Fortune 500 companies, pharmaceutical giants, oil corporations. Billed $800 an hour. My calendar was booked 6 months in advance. Important people waited for my availability. But my son, he stopped asking me to show up because he learned early, Dad doesn't come to things. Dad is busy. Dad has important work. And I wore that like a badge of honor. I told myself, I'm providing for them. I'm building security. I'm being responsible. But that was a lie, a convenient lie I told myself so I wouldn't have to face the truth. Let me tell you about the day everything changed. It was 2015, Tuesday morning, November 17th. I remember the date because it was the biggest case of my career. A $180 million pharmaceutical liability suit. 3 years of preparation, everything riding on the opening statements. I woke up at 5 a.m., rehearsed my arguments, perfect suit, perfect briefcase. This was my moment. At 7:15 a.m., my phone rang. It was the principal at my son's high school. Michael was 16. They'd found oxycodone in his locker, not a small amount, enough to suggest he was dealing. The principal said, "Mr. Harrison, you need to come immediately. The police are here." I looked at the clock. 7:17 a.m. I had to be in court at 8 a.m. A $180 million case, 3 years of work, 12 lawyers depending on me. My son, or my career. I called my wife. I said, "Lisa, I can't. You need to handle this. I have court." There was silence on the line. Then she said something I'll never forget. "One day, you're going to realize that you've spent your whole life defending everyone except the people who actually needed you." She hung up. I won the case. $180 million settlement. Firm threw a party, champagne, bonuses, congratulations all around. I got home at 11 p.m. that night. Michael's door was closed. He didn't speak to me for 3 months. That was the first time he used heroin. He told me later in family therapy session number 5. I needed to know if you'd choose me, just once. You didn't. Here's what nobody tells you about success. It's a perfect hiding place. You can hide from yourself for decades behind a busy calendar, behind important meetings, behind, "I'm doing this for them." But you're not. You're doing it for you, because somewhere deep down, you're terrified. Terrified that without the title, without the wins, without the validation from strangers, you're nothing. I had a therapist once. I went because Lisa threatened to leave. He asked me, "What are you running from?" I laughed. I was offended. I said, "Running? I'm building. There's a difference." He just looked at me and said, "Is there?" I walked out, never went back. But that question, it stayed. It haunted me. Because late at night, when the accolades stopped, when the office was empty, when it was just me alone with a glass of scotch, I knew the answer. I was running from being ordinary, from being just a dad, just a husband, just a man, without the armor of my profession, without strangers telling me I was important.
See, Lisa loved me, but I didn't love myself, so I needed the world to love me instead. I needed clients to need me, judges to respect me, partners to envy me, because their validation filled the void that I refused to face. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the parts of yourself you reject, the truth you bury, the person you refuse to be. I rejected vulnerability, weakness, need. I rejected the part of me that was scared, that was tired, that needed help. And I called that rejection strength. I called it discipline. I called it being a man. But it was cowardice.
You know what the worst part is? I despised absent fathers. I'd see them at school events, the ones who showed up late, who checked their phones during the recital, and I'd think, weak, no commitment, no priorities. But I was worse, because at least they showed up. I didn't even pretend. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. I wasn't angry at those fathers. I was angry at the mirror they held up, because they showed me what I refused to see. I was exactly what I despised, except I had convinced myself I had a good excuse. My son asked me something once. He was 14. We were in the car. Rare moment alone. He said, "Dad, if I was your client, would you show up?" I laughed it off, ruffled his hair, said something stupid like, "You're not a client, you're my son." He said, "That's not what I asked." I didn't answer, because we both knew. If he was a client, I would have moved mountains. But he was my son, so he got leftovers.
I'm 66 now, retired 2 years ago. Thought retirement would feel like freedom. It feels like waking up, and waking up hurts. Last month, I went to visit Michael in rehab. Third time, like I said. We sat across from each other in a small room with plastic chairs. He looked tired, so tired. I said, "I'm sorry." He said, "For what specifically?" And I realized, where do I even start? Sorry for missing your childhood. Sorry for choosing a pharmaceutical company over you. Sorry for teaching you that love is transactional, that you have to earn attention. Sorry for being a stranger at your own home, I said, for not seeing you. He nodded. Didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said, "You know what's funny? You won all those cases, defended all those companies, but you couldn't defend me from myself." He was right. I spent 35 years defending the guilty, but I never once defended the innocent person who needed me most.
So what's left when the shadow finally catches you? When you stop running and turn around? The truth. And the truth is this: you are not your achievements. You are not your title. You are not the stranger's applause. You are what you give to the people who cannot do anything for you in return. You are the time you spent, the presence you gave, the moment you chose connection over conquest. I have 47 case files in storage. I don't remember most of them, but I remember every school play I missed, every birthday I was late to, every time Michael looked at the door hoping I'd walk through. That stays. The wins, smoke. The losses, permanent. So here's my challenge to you. 3 questions I should have asked myself at 30. Number 1, who are you running from? Not what, who. Because I guarantee you're running from yourself. And you can't outwork your shadow. Number 2, whose love are you actually seeking? If you're killing yourself for approval from people who don't know your kid's name, you've already lost. Number 3, what would you defend? If your child and your career were in court at the same time, which one gets your best argument? If this hit you, if you felt something shift, write 1 word in the comments. Seen. Because your shadow wants to be seen. It's been waiting.
Michael graduates rehab in 6 weeks. Maybe this time it'll stick. Maybe it won't. But I'll be there every visiting day,
because it's all I have left to give. Go.